DCP Player free. Get it now from digital.net.au.
Thank you. All right. I'm Annie Chang. I'm actually putting my SMPTE hat on right now, and I'm actually going to do a IMF in 5 minutes, just a presentation. And Howard did actually do an excellent job as an intro. But let me grab this. Stop putting the camera on me. Put it on. Yes, there. Thank you. All right. So IMF in 5 minutes, and I'm just going to give you a brief overview of what IMF is. So basically, it stands for, as Howard mentioned, the Interoperable Mastering Format. It is meant for non-digital cinema masters, even though it is loosely based on digital cinema standards that were already made. And basically, we added functionality to the IMF format that television and portable devices and that sort of thing actually need. So, more frame rates, the awful I word interlaced, and other things that you have to do for masters that are non-digital cinema related. And the idea is that it is interoperable, and it sounds magical, but that's because hopefully we're using some constrained standards that allow for interoperability. It is the idea of having one single interchangeable master file format, but like digital cinema, it does allow for supplemental packages or partial packages, so you don't actually have to do long play versions of all of your features or your content or your episodics. The idea is instead you can just keep the differences between each of those pieces and then just store that, just the instances, and then mix and match. And it doesn't really allow for a true file-based workflow, not just some silly tape replacement type of thing where you're just taking entire tape and then sticking it into a long play file. It really does allow for you to have some really interesting componentized workflows. So just a really quick blurb on the SMPTE structure. IMF is under a group called 35PM, which is the technology committee. It is in its own working group called 35PM50. I am the chair of that group. And because most of our documents are actually completed, we actually only have 2 groups underneath that, 2 subgroups that are really active at this point. One of which is the output profile list, which I will talk a little bit more in just a second. And then also the big important one right now that's going on is sample material interchange, which is also known as SMI. And that's really meant to do some interchanging and testing between file IMFs. So the idea is to get manufacturers involved and have them bring up their IMF implementations and interchange files and that sort of make sure that the standards are actually pretty clear of how they'll be implemented. And I wanted to plug the fact that we do have our first IMF Plug Fest happening on May 6th. In Burbank, California. So if you are a manufacturer and you have been making IMFs, please join the Plug Fest and help us with this interoperability. So what is actually in an IMF? Well, if you know digital cinema, it is actually very similar to that. This is going to sound very familiar. We have something called a composition playlist, which is a little piece of XML, also known as CPL. And it's like a recipe that ties together all your track files and synchronizes them for playback. So basically your track files are MXF wrapped essences, and your essence would be your image, your audio, subtitling, closed captioning, and metadata. And all that stuff together gets put together by this recipe of the CPL. Just like in digital cinema, that creates a composition. But unlike digital cinema, we also have another piece of XML called the output profile list, which Arjun is actually going to touch on a little bit because he is actually the chair of the OPL group. And what that does is give a global set of instructions to the IMF composition. So you're going to take that composition and you're now going to do something with it. So the ultimate idea is like having transcoding information in there that you can just create different OPLs for, say, like the Netflix profile, the iTunes profile, that sort of thing. But you can also put in other information like image resizing information, how you actually want to have color conversions done, audio routing, mixing, and that sort of thing. Also, just like digital cinema, we have 2 other files that you use when you actually deliver the IMFs. That's the asset map and the packing list. And these are important documents for that whoever's receiving the IMF so that they actually know what's actually in the package. So altogether, that becomes an IMP or an Interoperable Master Package. All right, so as Howard alluded to, the differences that we have with IMF and digital cinema include the fact that we have this notion of applications. So we have a core framework of common pieces, so that would be the composition playlisting, the like self-wrapping, those kind of things. But instead of just having this one set of instructions for the package, we actually have these things called modular applications that slot into the core framework. And that allows for specific functionality or certain problems to be solved. So this could be like different codecs, it could be different resolutions, frame rates, etc. So currently, right now, we have at SMPTE, we have 2 applications on the table that are complete. That is JPEG 2000, application number 2, which is up to HD resolution and includes SD. And then we also have the application 3, which is MPEG 4, simple studio profile up to 4K. For the document status at SMPTE, we have published documents, yay! So they are done, and we've got basically all the core pieces there, and then right now we have a couple of in-flight documents. We have a JPEG 2000 extended, which includes UHD 422 up to 24 frames per second. We have a film archive project for application 2, and we also have output profile list drafts that are actually out there for review right now. And so basically that was my IMF in 5 minutes. I think I ran over a bit, but anyway, thanks for listening, and I will be back.